Cellist Michael Goldschlager lives in the hills on the outskirts of Perth, and he's lived there for many, many years, but it's about as far away as you can get from his hometown, New York City, where he grew up, and where he studied under Bernard Greenhouse and David Sawyer of the Guarneri Quartet. He went on to study at the Royal Academy of Music, and he's just released the most wonderful album of Bach unaccompanied cello sonatas. Michael, just briefly the history of how you came to record the set.
Look, these are seminal works for the repertoire. In the repertoire, they are known to cellists from the time we pick one up. And for me, I think I played my first prelude when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. This was recorded in Melbourne last year using this modern cello, which was made in 1780.
1780, and it's quaint, isn't it, that it's known as a modern.
It is actually
a modern cello.
But it is a modern cello in the sense that when it was in its original shape, the neck was shorter, the bridge was flatter, the bows that were used were not shaped like this one, and these are steel strings. Some even have a tungsten core. So the instrument itself is not exactly what Bach would have heard, but my position is and will always be that this man was an innovator at the cutting edge, and would be delighted to hear his music played on modern equipment.
Let me take you back to the history of your relationship with the works, because you, as you say, you started playing them when you were a very little boy.
Yes.
But they've also played a part of your professional career, I believe.
Indeed. I was lucky enough to be in the cast, a 7-person cast of a play called The Elephant Man, which was on Broadway back in around 1980 and 81. I played alongside my fellow actors such as David Bowie and Philip Anglum and Mark Hamill. And my job was to play Bach's suite movements in between the acts and between the scenes within the acts. So there were about 13 or 14 different movements that I played 8 times a week for 2.5 years. And if you do the math, that's a lot of Bach.
They are, as you say, they're seminal works. They're tremendously important works for a lot of people. You know, if I could just use myself as an example, in the process of falling in love with music, the Bach unaccompanied cello sonatas have accompanied me through my life, and they must pose great challenges to a performer like yourself, how you approach the work.
They're living things. It's always been evident to me that as we play them, they change. Our interpretations change. They change as we age, as we hear new things, and so on. And so, in essence, this double CD set is a snapshot. I've moved on since they were recorded, but at that moment in time, this was the way I interpreted them. They're important. This set of 6 suites came from a period in Bach's life when he wrote all his great instrumental music, the violins, sonatas, partitas, the Brandenburg concertos, the orchestral suites, secular music for the most part. And these works are profound. I'll just pick an example. There is the C minor suite, contains a saraband. Yo-Yo Ma played it, as a matter of fact, when the towers fell in New York. It is a haunting movement that has no double stops, just single notes in a row. I think there are 108 notes in the whole piece. But so important are those notes that Bach himself used them in the Et Incarnatus Est movement of the B minor Mass the year before he died. I mean, these are really important works, even to Bach. But of course, we don't know exactly what he wrote because we don't have the manuscript in his hand.
So what are we working from?
We're working from source copies. One is in his second wife's hand, that's Anna Magdalena, and a contemporary of his by the name of Franz Peter Kellner. And these original materials and a few others form the basis of what we suppose he wrote. Again, back to the 5th suite, we do know that he took the 5th suite music and rewrote it later for lute as BWV 995. And he changed it. As things evolved, he evolved, his tastes evolved, and so the piece also changed a little bit. But these things are inferences. The original works that the original manuscripts that cellists work from are not in his hand. So we are starting with some suppositions, and It's actually okay, because I believe that this man was one of the great improvisers, along with people like Charlie Parker, Ludwig van Beethoven, and others. And
not to mention Mozart.
And Mozart, and these people would be delighted to see the evolution of their own work. So being enslaved to some supposed instruction, I think, is an error.
This obviously is a major statement by you as a musician. Reaching this point in your life, you produce the set of 6, these great works, and you entered into a process of scholarship as well. I believe you published a small booklet, the liner notes.
The liner notes, yes, I wrote those as well.
Tell me about that.
Well, the liner notes, you can only write so much in a liner note. I think it's about 2,000 words. And in it, what I tried to couch were what I call the equations. There are things that every artist has to balance out in their approach to works such as these. For example, the way the old instruments were played, the equipment that was used at the time as opposed to the modern equipment, and how we use that. The audience of the time, I always urge people to remember that this was new music. This is not old music. This was new music. And if we approach it in the same way that we would a piece that was written this year, then we have a very fresh approach rather than being influenced by traditions and conventions. So I've tried to escape those. I took about a year practicing these suites without any influences. I didn't want to hear any recordings, and I didn't. And so the intimate relationship that I developed with them over the course of that period allowed me to create something that is, well, I think uniquely mine, and I suppose it'll be up to the public to decide whether or not they like it.
The release date, October 14, I believe?
14th of October, I am told, ABC Classics and Universal, and it's really quite a beautiful piece of cover art, I have to say, so you'll be watching for it at the ABC shop and other places online.
Michael, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you, Peter.